when he says in the Bible that he's with you at your darkest moments, he means it. He is 100% there with you, walking you right through whatever you're going through.
Hey you guys, welcome back to the Raised and Redeemed podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Michaela, and today I have on none other than my very own mom. So I thought this would be a great sequel to posting my testimony last week for you to see a little bit of where I came from and just to hear her stories and her radical experiences with Jesus while she was in prison and the message that she has for people who are still struggling with addiction and just feeling like they're at the lowest point in their lives. So if that interests you, be sure to stay tuned. Just for the viewers to know, we tried to film this podcast a couple years ago when I first became a believer and realized that you knew what you were talking about all these years, even though I didn't know yet. And then the audio corrupted and we never got to have that file. So we're going to try again.
I know. It was awful last time. I mean, here we thought we had it, but we didn't. That stupid devil.
Let's just jump right to it. I want to know this story because I love this story. I remember this story, but I'm excited for you to tell it. The story of how you first came to know that Jesus was real.
I've always had like this knowing, I think, even since, just as long as I can remember. I just remember my grandma taking us to church when we were growing up, and we would all pile in and go to Huntington, Indiana, and go to this little church. And she was a faithful every Sunday we were going. And I just always, I feel like even since back then, I've just felt like I've known that he was real, but it was absolutely 100% positive for me when I was able to have my experiences and encounters that I did while I was in prison. The last time I was in prison. Yeah.
Was that the first time you were in prison, or that was the last time you were in prison?
That was no, it was like the time before. It wasn't the first time. The first time I was in like a work camp place. So it would have been the last time I went. The time before the last time, I'm sorry. The time before.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't sound good.
No, I mean, it's your story, you know?
Yeah.
And God is still working out your story. So
Yes, he is.
There is a hopeful end to it. But so I didn't really think about how you like grew up in a family where, you went to church and all these things, but do you think that you fell away because you didn't have like that personal relationship built yet with Jesus? Like, do you feel like that relationship finally began to be built when you were in prison? Like it was more so religion before that?
Exactly. That's exactly right. It didn't, yeah, you're spot on. You're exactly right. I think when I was in prison and he used me in the way he did, that's when I knew 100%. That's when my personal relationship really got stronger. What started the whole experience for me was when my neighbor girl, she lived next door to me. She was 19 years old. Her name was Princeola. She was 22 days away from going home, and she was only 19, and she hung herself and killed herself in the shower. This would have been in September of 2018. Okay. We had all been in solitary confinement, like 90 days at this point. I had gotten a 6-month reprimand for, some write-ups that I had. And this was 3 months into this solitary confinement stay of mine, which I don't know if your listeners know, like the solitary confinement is you're in a room by yourself, 100% by yourself, 23 out of 24 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day because they can't get you out, for that hour. But, you get close to the people that are around you and that you can talk to like through the ventilation systems. And I got really close with this girl. I got close with her. She was the only person I had to talk to. Like we could talk in the vent, and she was young. She was your age when all the security, you guys were the exact same age. So she would have been your age right now. And I just kind of took her under my wing, and not like that I set out to do that. She just clung to me like all the time, like loved saying my name. She just really liked me for some reason, would always ask me questions. And I kind of felt like I was like, kind of like a mother figure for her while I was in there, because she had went to court and they had told her that she could go home on like house arrest, or as long as she went to like a halfway house.
Mhm.
Well, she called home. She was all excited. She called home, and I want to shorten the story a little bit because I don't want to drag it out. But she was upset because her grandma didn't want her to come home, because she didn't know if she could trust her yet. She was in there for stealing from her grandma checks and things like that, and so she got an event one day, and she said, "Michelle, what's a halfway house?" And I explained to her exactly what it was. And I told her she would be okay. And I said, you're still going to be out of prison. You're going to be out. I
Yeah.
said, the only difference is you're going to be like, it's kind of going to be like a restricted housing, kind of like we are now. Like you're going to have, a curfew, but you'll be able to get a job. And I explained that all to her, and she seemed okay. Well, about a week later, it was on a Sunday. I'll never forget. Like it was real. The prison was calm. I was in my yoga routine that I did every day faithfully for 2 hours a day. And so this would have been, I started yoga usually around 2, and I ended it at 4 when dinner came. And like in the middle of my session, there was just all this chaos, and I kept hearing my name being yelled, and I got in the window to see what was going on. And the only other type of communication I had with the other inmates that was in there, we used sign language, and that's how we communicated with each other across the way, like you're across the way neighbor,
Okay.
neighbor people. And they told me that she had hung herself. And um I remember her always having a really beautiful voice. Like she would sing us to sleep at night, like, and when nighttime would come, it would be real quiet. And with it being like a long hallway, there was an echo, and she would sing, and she just had this most beautiful voice. And like usually the guards would be like, shut up, but they never told her. She sounded like
Ah.
one she's almost sounded like an angel. That's how beautiful her voice was. And she loved to sing Christian music. Like her favorite song was Take Me to the King. She loved singing that one, and I just remember her always singing that song. Well, um she didn't make it, and she died. And like I said, she had used the shower of that solitary confinement block to do it. And this would have been September, in the middle of September of 2018. I didn't get out of prison until the end of December, but I didn't get out of the solitary confinement, until like December 18th. I remember I still had 3 more months to go. I was halfway into it. And for some reason, after her death, I just started just praying to God, like out of nowhere. And I would pray, but I never got that deep into it. Like I was really affected by her death. They didn't do anything. They didn't even give us any type of like therapy, like nobody to talk to. We had to deal with it by ourselves. And it was hard, and it really affected me. And the only thing, with me not having any contact with anybody from home that much, it was my Bible, and praying was the only thing that would give me that peace. And I started praying, and I was asking God, and I just started thinking of the things that maybe she was thinking about when she did it. All she wanted was her mom. And
Right.
she was 19 years old. And yeah, and I swear that's when things really took a turn for, the things that happened. It was right then and there when I started asking God for a second chance, and praying, and telling him I'm sorry that I was a bad mom, and all these things. I was just going through it, and he was my only like voice of hope, I think, at the time. And so that's when things started.
Yeah.
And they didn't go away. I like it it kept going for like the whole rest of the time I was in lock. So
So I remember you telling me the first time
mhm.
about this story, how one of those songs that she was always singing, I think you said it was
Yes.
Bone Thugs and
Yes.
Harmony.
It was.
And
It was
the moment they were like,
Crossroads.
yeah, Crossroads,
Yes.
and they were taking her out on the stretcher, and as
Yep.
they were
That
taking
song.
her out, that song
Yep. came on the radio, and that was one of the songs that she liked to sing at night. Take me to the, or gotta get to heaven, heaven, heaven. She loved to say that part. It was like a little chorus part. I don't know if you know the song very well. I had my little Walkman radio in my room, and I had like one in and one out, and that's the song that came on the radio, like
And
right at that exact moment, and it just sent chills down my spine. Like I just knew that was like God. I knew it was.
you also told me, like, when you were in solitary confinement, how you would be, I don't know if this is when it started, then you said the way you were coping with this is you started reading the Bible.
Yes.
And you told me before how when you'd be reading the Bible, you would see this light go across the page.
Oh,
And
that's just one of the things. So I really just poured myself into the Bible. I mean, I was on fire for God, and I understood at that moment, like what being hungry for the word and thirsty for the water of, for the, the water of life or whatever. And that's exactly, I couldn't get enough. I just stayed. Every guard that would go by that would look in there, they'd be like, "You just stay in that book, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yep, I did." And I did. I didn't read even hardly any books, like regular books. I stayed in my Bible. Well, as I'm like, starting to understand that the way that I was feeling in certain things, that was happening, like with the orb of light that would be on my wall, and I'll get to that next. But there was like this little, when I started reading my Bible, when it started getting like darker, like in the evening time, I would always put my mat on the floor because it was warmer. You got to mind you, it was starting to get a little cold in there. It was coming into winter, and I would lay on the floor and I would pray at night, and I started noticing like this ball of light, like that would like bounce like from the corner of the wall, all the way out until my prayer was finished. Well, the same thing started happening in my Bible. I
mm,
started reading the Bible, and when I would open it up, there was like this, I can only explain it like a little green neon
yeah,
swirl is what it looked like. And it was like it stayed in the middle of my book. And I just remember, even in like, I would think, oh my gosh, I'm just imagining this. I would try to like, the devil would like try to like convince me that it was, oh, you're just imagining things. And so in the middle of the night, sometimes I would get up and just open my Bible to see if it was still there, and it would be. It never left. That ball of light was just like swirling
mm,
in the middle, and it was like, as I would read the Bible, the words started like lifting, like certain like verses and certain scriptures would like lift from the page to where like I would know what to read. It was just,
yeah,
and in the beginning I still thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Like, is this
uh-huh,
real? Like, it took a little, while into this before I really started believing that it was real, that God was there. He was in
yeah.
that room with me.
I remember you telling me, like, you would close your Bible to see if it was
Yeah,
still there and you would still
and
see it.
open it up.
I
I
remember you
did.
telling me about the angel feet that you saw in your
Oh,
window.
yeah, and then one night it was raining. It had been raining, and mind you, law in a prison, there's barbed wire and like fencing that like you're not getting in. There's nobody getting in like around the door, like the solitary confinement area I was at. There's no way that anybody could have got back there and walked around. And
Right.
so one night it had been raining, and it was like I had in the solitary confinement windows, they would always snow them out to where we couldn't see very well outside. But I had like where people had picked the snow off here and there, like I had like these little splotches of areas where I could see. Well, I had picked off enough. I had been in there so long, I picked off enough. I had a good little area going on where I could see outside. And I like to be able to lay on my mat when I did yoga during the day and see the sun. And so when, like I said, one evening I got to look in, and there were, I thought like there were I saw the handprints first, but right under, I started looking down under the handprints, there were two sets of handprints. There was also feet prints. So who, like, that was like my, I guess, confirmation, because yeah, the handprints could be easily explained away, but the feet prints, bare feet prints, I thought,
Bare
like,
feet.
yeah. So I started reading like the Bible, and everything I looked up, like it was like basically telling me that that was God sending an angel, like a messenger of the Lord.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
I know he
I
spoke to you in dreams too. You talked a lot about
Oh,
dreams.
yeah, like I didn't even have to be sleeping at night. I would, like just be laying there in corpse pose sometimes after yoga, and I would just have a vision.
Mm.
And it was starting to get like they would be so vivid that I could remember every single detail down to a pimple on my face. Normal dreams that people have, like you're going to forget like parts of it. When it's a vision of God and from God, and from what I know, like in the book of Job, like that's what he told. It says it a couple times in there that God speaks to people in dreams, and that's how he communicates with people. Like even now, and so if he did it back then, I 100% believe he still does it today.
Oh, yeah.
I started writing down all my dreams, and I wanted to share whenever we get to that point. There was one that just was my favorite that like still to this day, like I can go through and remember every little thing about it because it was the vision that God gave me, a clean slate. I can't exactly remember if it was the nighttime vision or a daytime, but I just know that I had a vision, and I was in this bathroom, and there was like a mirror, like like a good bathroom sized mirror on the wall, and there was vanity lights all around it, like in a bathroom. And there was a sink, and the water was already running. In my vision, I know that Jesus is walking behind me. I never saw his face, nor did I ever see him, but in my vision and in my being, I just knew that he was leading me. I
Mm.
knew he was behind me. I didn't even try to turn around. I didn't have to. I knew he was there, and he was leading me and telling me in this unspoken word. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do without him even speaking,
Yeah.
and I was to go wash my hands. And so I walked up to this sink and I washed my hands. And I'm looking at myself in this mirror, and in real life, like I have this zit on my lip, like down here in the corner, and I was always messing with it because it's one of those zits that you get like that hurt really bad. And so I
Yeah.
knew that I had this zit, and in my vision, and I'm looking in this bathroom mirror, I had the exact same zit. I'm looking at myself with the same zit on my face. I'm like, wow. And I don't know if that was like a confirmation from him, like, hey, this is really you. This is really
Real.
true
Yeah.
happening right now. Like, I don't care. Like, this is today happening. And so that was just, I took it as that. And well, so I washed my hands, and I knew automatically, like I said, in an unspoken word, what I was to do. I was to go throw away my paper towel or whatever that I used to dry my hands. And as I'm walking to the corner of the room to throw this paper towel away, I see this like it looked like a huge like the old school ketchup bottles, like the old glass. That's what it looked like, but it filled up the whole like corner of a room. It was full. It was full of like this sand. It looked like sand to me, like this like off brown dirty looking sand. It was filled all the way to the top, and it had a big white sticker on it. And I'll never forget, like the words stuck out. The two words that were on it stuck out to me because it was in big black letters, and it said clean slate in big black letters. And I threw away my paper towel, and God knew that I was going to go look at this. And as these visions and dreams started happening to me, and I started learning how to interpret what their meanings, because there was some that I had that I just didn't understand. I would lay there and I would be like, okay, God, what am I supposed to get from this? Like, what does this mean? You've got to tell me. And I started learning, and just in a voice like in my head, like I heard God tell me, you have to ask me, you have to pray, you
Mm.
have to pray, and I will reveal to you, and that's exactly what happened. I just started being able to interpret what these, things meant. And it was God showing me all my sins in a bottle, because in the Bible it says that once he gives you a clean slate, like all your sins go too, and they're washed away. And if you think about it, it was a bottle of sand, and when you throw a bottle in, what does it do? It washes away, and you'll never see it again. And that was him telling me that those were all my dirty, sandy sins in a bottle, and that he was going to give me a clean slate, and that I had a clean slate. And it just, that was the most powerful, I think, powerful one for me, was because, like, I mean, you can't get more powerful that when God lets you know that he's given you a clean slate.
What'd you do after that?
Well, I just, when I tell you I was in awe, like I just but then there's the devil, like, on the other side of my shoulder, like, "No, you're imagining things, you've been in a room by yourself for too long, you're hallucinating,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just," you know what I mean? And so I'm
Well,
fighting, it was like spiritual warfare. I
yes,
was fighting with
yes.
myself, but it was the devil I was fighting with.
'Cause he
So
tries to steal every
exactly.
revelation that we get from
Yeah.
God. The moment we get it, he
Yes.
tries to steal it from us, of course.
Yes, and he's telling me that I'm not good enough and, like, I'm not gonna get, that there's no way, like, why would he give you a clean slate now? You've got a whole life to live, and what if of course you're gonna mess up and, like, well, I started praying and asking God about that, like, well, if you have given me a clean slate, what if I sin again? I started thinking all these things and doubting what the message was. And then I would like have Jesus on the other shoulder telling me, you don't have to worry about that because every day is a new day. Like, you people are going to sin, we're human. But like, if you ask me for forgiveness, I'm going to forgive you because that's what I do. Even if you mess up, and you will, because you're human. And so I'm just fighting this battle of spiritual warfare, I think, the whole time. But I absolutely knew 100% that they were real, and that's how, and sometimes God uses people that you would never even think that he would possibly use, like people in prison. And when he says in the Bible that he's with you at your darkest moments, he means it. He is 100% there with you, walking you right through whatever you're going through. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sorry.
Oh, mom.
I know. I'm sorry. Every time I tell it, I can't help it. It just
No, it's
I get the
beautiful.
chills. Yeah, it is. It's beautiful, but I think it's just because I've not been perfect since I've been out. I've messed up a lot. And so I still, like, sometimes when I tell that story, I'm like, am I even worthy enough to say it and still tell it?
It's still
So
true. It's still
yeah,
true.
I know.
I
Sorry.
knew that this podcast would be good, not just for telling
Yeah,
not just telling the past, but remembering what's still true in the present.
yeah,
What
yeah,
he's already spoken over your life, what he's still speaking into your life. I knew that, you retell your story, you remember what he's done before in your life, and it strengthens your faith and it reminds you
yes,
of the mountains that he's moved for you in the past and the fact that we serve a God that will do it again.
yeah. Yes, and he will, like, and why I was chosen to be, but one of the people that got to see, like, I don't have to have faith because in it be an unknown faith, like a lot of people, like, I just happen to be one of the lucky ones. Like, I don't even have to have faith. I've seen it with my
Yeah.
own eyes, and I
Oh,
know, you know what I mean? And I just, I look at other people that have to just rely on that
yeah.
unknown faith, and that I can only imagine how hard that must be. And I just feel so, that makes me feel even like even lower sometimes, because I'm like, wow, God chose me to show things to and see things. And, I know now why he did that. He wants me to tell people, like, cause at first
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. Do I tell people these? They're going to think I'm crazy.
You
They're going to think
tell
I'm lying. They're going to think I'm trying to get attention. They're going to think all these things. And I did experience all of those things
yeah, of
because I did get out, and I did, like, overabundantly, like, oh, you guys got to hear what happened. And I would tell all these people, and there were some that literally, like, in the book of Matthew, it tells you don't throw your pearls to pigs because they will trample on it.
mm,
And when he says pearls, he means special things from him, like, don't throw your pearls to the pigs because they will trample all over it.
yeah,
And that's what happened a lot. Like, I told the wrong people, and they trampled all over all my little pearls, to the point where I just quit talking about it. I quit. And but then again, if you read the Bible and scripture, like, the
yeah,
devil's going to fight every little good thing that happens. So that's just something that you have to deal with. And you
yes.
just have to have in faith,
And
that.
the more warfare that you
Yeah.
experience, that's
Uh-huh.
what reveals the fact that you have something that much more special, that
Yeah,
God has that much greater of a purpose, the fact that the devil's trying to steal it from you in the first place.
exactly. And that's what like, my fiance, like, he's not as strong in the word, and he dealt with the loss of his parents at a very young age. And so he's been mad at God for a long time, a lot of years. And I try not to push it down his throat like I've told you, I try my hardest not to, but it's so hard sometimes because I just want him to know. And even sometimes I look at him and I'm like, does he believe what I'm saying? Like, does
Mm,
he really think sometimes I wonder, is even he thinking I'm making it up? But I
yeah.
mean, I don't believe he really is. I think that's just, again, the devil telling me a lie.
Well, I ask V that all the time, like, because I'll be
Yeah.
telling these stories of crazy
Yeah.
spiritual things I've experienced, and, like,
Yep.
he's very quiet, and so then I'm like, "Do
That's
you still
Jason.
believe me?"
Jason's quiet too, and he's not a big talker, and so he'll just look at me like, just like probably V looks at you, and yeah, people, us that like to talk, and we have to hear like we want to hear like what they have to say, and they just don't have any words, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like you said, like, you just feel so lucky because
Uh-huh.
God revealed to you, you don't have to rely on faith, and how hard it would be if you did just have to rely on faith like most
Yeah.
people do. Like, we've been so blessed that we have
Yes.
seen what we've seen, and I
Mhm.
have no answer for it either. Like, we don't deserve it, you
You
know?
don't. I mean, that's how I feel a lot, but the more God does for us and the more God shows us, it's going to get even stronger with the devil. The devil's going to fight even harder to take it away and make you feel that low. And so
Yeah.
that's the only thing that picks me back up, is knowing that that's supposed to happen, because that's what's going to happen until God destroys him for good. It's never going to go away until then.
Mom, do you think that somebody has to hit a rock bottom to come to a true, like, deep faith in Jesus?
No, I really don't think you have to hit a rock bottom. I mean, I think it's just according to that person. I don't know. What is your take on that?
Maybe it's like in my family because I feel like a lot of times like our perspectives are shaped by how we grew up and what we see and I
Mhm.
really have seen it work that way time and time again where it is a rock bottom that finally leads somebody to the cross because
Yeah.
that's the only place to look for hope. But like you said, it doesn't have to be that. Like there are kids that grew up in the church that stayed strong in that have strong faith with Jesus.
Yes.
But you know what? I feel like because we weren't, because like you and I like we're rebellious, we're sinners.
Yes.
I mean, everybody's a sinner, but
Yeah.
we're very rebellious and I feel like God knew that he had to show us. Like he comes to everybody differently and
Mhm.
he knows how
Yep.
that person will best receive him. And
Yes.
so it depends on the relationship, right? But I feel like for us, like he had to show us so that we would believe. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Well said, really, because that's basically what I was trying to say, but not in the words you use. You can tell you're a college educated woman. I love it. You do. You just sound wonderful. You speak very well, and I love that
Oh,
about it. I
thank
you do.
Oh,
I'm so
you're
proud
doing
of you.
so great too. I was reading my Bible today about
Mhm.
I think it was Paul in Acts and he's going around and
Timothy is a good one too. Timothy worried about it too because he was young, and he felt like he was going to have a problem too. I just have a hard time sometimes, I guess, with my approach. I guess maybe in speaking altogether, I tend to ramble, and I don't mean
that's
to.
it's what makes
So
the story powerful, the fact
yeah,
that because I read this side note in my Bible today where it said the people knew that he had spent real time with Jesus because he didn't have a theological education. All
yeah,
he knew Jesus. He knew how to tell about Jesus because he spent time with Jesus. So you don't have to have that
exactly.
theological background or like all this education. Like your experiences with Jesus, that's enough.
Exactly. And like the remainder of my time in prison, as my faith in what was happening got stronger, because like I said, faith can be several things when it has to do with God, and it just kept getting stronger
Mm,
because I started believing more that this is absolutely 100% from God. Because I would even test, in the Bible it tells you sometimes to test the spirits.
yeah.
You have to test the spirits, and I would test them, like when I would every night, and when I would pray, and that ball of light would like bounce diagonally across the room up until, and I would like linger my prayer. Just I would never, it would never leave until I said amen. And
Mhm.
so sometimes I would just keep going and it would never leave. It just would bounce. It would just bounce real lightly and never go. But the minute I said amen, it would leave. Like
Mm.
it was taking it up to my prayer up to heaven,
Yeah.
and
But angels all around. Those feet prints
yeah,
were proof. They
exactly.
were taking your prayers to God.
Exactly. And so, it was just not only the dreams and visions, but like, I was also like, it was like I could visualize and see like into the spiritual realm. Just the little glimpse he showed me in there, if it's that beautiful, I can only imagine what it looks like in real life. Like when we absolutely get to go to the kingdom, like I can only imagine how beautiful it is, because just the little glimpse that I got to see was, oh, I just wanted more and more. And it was so pretty. Just,
The
you know,
butterflies?
the butterflies and the angels in the sky. I don't know if I haven't told you, I know I've told you, but I haven't told everyone about, the time I was looking out my window, and it was like a little bit cloudy out. There wasn't any sun that day, and there was like minimal clouds in the sky. And I'm just staring up there, and all of a sudden I start seeing these swooshes, like real like swooshes, like angel, like you could tell, and they just started going all across the sky, and I just knew they were angels. I could see the swooshes.
Hey, you guys, if you're in a relationship and trying to figure out if he's the one, or maybe you're recently single and taking a step back to figure out how to best go about finding the one, I have the ebook for you. Head over to the link in my bio or in the comment section from wherever you're listening to find my latest ebook, How to Know If He's the One. In this ebook, I share the worst of my relational mistakes and how Jesus finally showed me there was a better way. Gradually, he began to mend my heart, and I know he will do the same for you too. I know that you had, I don't know why this memory keeps coming up that I want to ask you about, because we've talked a lot about like your heavenly visions and your encounters with God. I don't know if this happened after where you like also saw like very demonic things too. Um and then there was one story in particular where you told me you relapsed and you started using, I think it was heroin again, and you had this vision from God because you were looking at an old photo album of like the kids and the family and everything, and he told you once again, not like verbally, you didn't hear the words, but like in your
The
head,
unspoken voice.
the
Yeah.
unspoken voice, you heard him tell you if you didn't stop, you were going to burn with the rest of the world. Do you think that was
Mhm.
God or do you think that was Satan?
Um, I don't know, just because it's all spiritual warfare, the whole time, things are, like I said, when all the good visions and, the things that I know are of God, there's always right there beside it, there's always the devil trying to make you believe otherwise.
Yeah.
And so I can't honestly 100% say I know, but I just know that usually when I saw like the dark side of the spiritual realm, it was when I was under the influence of
Mm,
a drug. And I think that's because I don't, the video that you had me watch about the Christian man that took the psychedelics and the experience he had, like his words were like exactly how what I would think, what I think. The devil coming to God and is saying, "Hey, he came to us. He ate off our table." Well, that's what you do when you're taking drugs. You're eating from the devil's table, you're eating his lunch, his buffet, not God's. And
yeah.
so I think that goes hand in hand with why I did see like all the dark entities and whatnot, what I did see. I was usually under the influence. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes
So
complete sense.
whether it was the devil, that kind of makes me question, I lean more kind of towards that because of being on drugs during that. So,
Right. I didn't think about that until I was asking the question because I was just gonna have you tell the story. And then as I
right.
was saying it, I'm like, that sounds so harsh. And like God is like
Yeah.
you know, like Old Testament God,
He's
like God,
gentle. Jesus is very gentle, and, like, and
yeah,
that's what makes me think, yeah, maybe it was, maybe it was Satan. I don't know,
but God is
you know?
also like, you know, about truth and justice.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't sugarcoat either. So you
No.
especially see that in the Old Testament tellings of him.
Right.
So it could
Yeah.
be him being like straight up, like, hey, if you don't
Yeah.
repent, like you're
Exactly.
gonna burn with the rest of them. Or it could have been Satan persecuting you too. So I guess
Uh-huh.
you just don't know. Have you had anything um like that since? Or like I know like you've gotten clean and you've relapsed and you've went back and you've got out. And I'm just curious like where you are now, like how you would say that you're walking
Uh,
now.
well, yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, I told you about when my dog got shot. About my mom died, it's been a little over 2 years now, and, I told you about a dream that I had about her, and my dog appeared. I was walking in a circle with her. I was walking in a group of people. That's what's weird. And it'd been probably close to 2 years after she died, and she was like her younger self, but not real young, maybe early 20s, mid 20s, something like that. And she still had that Farrah Fawcett hair that she used to wear, and she was all smiley like my mom was a lot. And she was talking to me in this dream, and I just remember we were walking in a circle, and um I ended up stopping, and in the midst of our talking, this is and I just remember I sat Indian style on the ground, and I was looking at her, and I couldn't hear what she was saying at that moment. And in my dream, I to this day I cannot make out the words she was telling me, but she was speaking to me, and in my dream, I guess, or whatever, like, I understood then, like, that me understood exactly what she was saying, but at that moment in time, I couldn't hear exactly what she was saying. And then, all of a sudden, we start walking again. Get up and I start walking with her again, and out of nowhere, from the front of the line, like, in front of me, like, my male dog, Boomer, he like turns left like he's leaving the circle and starts coming back towards me. And he made eye contact with me, and he's bobbing his little head and he's walking towards me. And then I woke up, and I remember telling Jason the next day, and I was like, wow. I said, that was crazy. I said, I had a dream of my mom. I said, and Boomer appeared. I said, I don't know if we were in heaven. I don't know where I was at, but I was walking in a group of people with my mom, but we were going in a circle. This has been a few months ago now that this happened. I was been able to interpret what I think the meaning of that was, because Jason was like, I don't know. He's like, that, that's, I know it was your mom, but I wonder, what that meant. And it just kind of left my mind at that moment in time because it hadn't happened yet. Well, about 2 weeks later, he gets shot and he gets killed. And it was like I lost a child. I mean, that was my little baby. Like, I didn't think I was going to come back from that. I was devastated. And then all of a sudden, it was like maybe either the next night or the night after that, like, it was real close to right when it happened. It just hit me. I looked at, my fiance. I said, "Oh my God, I know exactly what that dream was. That was mom telling me like in that, she was letting me know that with him appearing up there, wherever I was at talking to her, and him being there, that was her way of letting me know that he was home, that he was going to be there with her." And I know that several places in the Bible where it speaks of God, God speaks of the animals get to go to heaven too. Like, the
Oh,
animals are all going to be there. Like, all the species are going to they get to go to heaven too. And that was just like a comfort. And I feel like that was her way. You know, I could just see her going and asking God, I've got to let her know somehow, some way, because my mom she knew how fascinated I was about, being able to see, and just she knew I would be so excited about, like, like a sign like that. And I could just see her going and asking him, like, I've got to show her, I've got to let her know, that he's going to be okay and he's going to be here. So yeah, I mean, even still today, like, I still have little things, things like that that happen, that The 100% of me believes that it is of God, and it's dimmed some because I'm not as, like I was in there, like where I stayed in the Bible constantly nonstop. It's different when you're out on the street in your home and you got more distractions. I'm in school now and I've got a lot of things going on. And so I can't like stay in the Bible 23 hours out of the day like I was before. So the light is dimmed some, but yeah, I still think absolutely that I still have experiences right
Right.
now.
Well, there's also a honeymoon period. It's like, any relationship where you first come into a relationship, you go through the
Yeah,
honeymoon period and
before the novelty wears off.
yeah, but
Yeah,
then you still, just like in a relationship with a spouse, you have to keep finding ways to build that and continue getting to know each other. And so, yeah, I'm noticing that's where I am now too. Where in the beginning, it was like so much spiritual warfare was happening. I was seeing so much. God was like, so, like, I was just seeing him like fight for me. And
yeah,
there was a lot of novelty. And now it's more stable. Now it's more quiet. Now it's
yeah.
spending more quiet time with him and just the commitment and the loyalty of the relationship.
The way you said it is you're exactly right. That's a good way of saying it because that just gives me more comfort now, because that you're right. Because I feel like when he first starts like blessing someone in that way, he has to be like, hey, like a little bit more
Yeah. He's
forthcoming with it
pursuing.
because he wants you to know, like, hey, it's me,
Yeah,
and this is me, and I'm showing you, and like, this is what it is. And so you need to believe it. And so, yeah, I think you're right. It's just like any other relationship. It's got to come to a stable point to where, hey, he showed you, and that's where the faith comes in. I
yeah,
think that's where you got to hold on to your faith.
yeah. Now you be loyal.
Exactly. And your loyalty. Yes, you're
Yeah.
right.
So the last thing I want to ask you is what your message would be to, you look 20 years back, that
Mhm.
you that was struggling, that you before, and I don't know how many exactly years, but that you before you knew the hope of Jesus, who was just, stuck in addiction. You thought that was your whole life. Like, I want to know what your message would be to that person then who's walking in what you've overcame now.
I think that one of the things that comfort me the most is knowing, and this is what I would tell someone that was like struggling in addiction, and they're at their lowest point where they just have no hope. I think I would remind them of the fact of why Jesus came to earth and why decided to become human, because God didn't understand what it was like to have a human life. And back in the Old Testament, he used to just banish people. Like they didn't have to feel death and they didn't have to go through he would just get rid of them. And well, when Jesus came, I think he did that for a very good reason. He wanted to know what it was like to have human emotions and what it was like to be human, and like how easy it is to fall into temptation. And I would just let him know that he got to finally experience that, and that's why he came. And so that's why he's the closest with people that are like stuck in addiction. Like, that's who he came here to save, was people like us. And he walked 33 years on this earth, in a human body, and he didn't sin. But that's because it's God. It was God. Jesus is God. I would say just hold on to that and just know that he would be right here if he was still like human to this day. He would be hanging out with the people that are going like on the street corners, the prostitutes, the drug addicts. That's who he would be surrounding himself with, because we're the ones that he came to save in the first place, the lost ones.
Amen. Ooh, that's good. I feel that.
You do?
Yeah,
Good.
Mom, thank you
I do
so much.
too. Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good for me too. I feel it too. Thank you. I needed that. And I just hope everybody else got out of that what we did, because, I mean, it's so hard. Sometimes it is hard talking to people that just have never got to experience things like that. And, just knowing, I want them to just believe so bad, because we know 100% that God's real and that Jesus, came and, to save us. But it's the other believers out there, that are a little bit, weak in faith. That's exactly what I would tell them. And I just hope they get out of it what we did.
They
Mhm.
will, Mom. Thank you. I
Okay.
love you so
You're
much.
welcome. I love you too. I love you too.
Mwah.